So chat, if you haven't noticed or you can't tell, we're really new at this. So please forgive us for the sins of the learning how to do this. So a year ago, let me toggle my video on so you can at least see that I'm here. A year ago, I started thinking about how Docker, going forward, we think about things like the container services. And so we talked to a lot of customers, and they just want a way to run containers in places that can take containers. And so about a month ago, we did an announcement with Microsoft, and then fast forward to yesterday, we did an announcement with AWS. So yesterday's announcement at the Cloud Container Conference was all about Docker to ECS. And so we announced a beta. The beta is available today. So you can go to the most recent Docker Edge version, Docker Desktop for Edge, and either for Mac or Windows, and download the release, and you'll have the ECS plugin pre-installed and ready to go. If you're on Linux, you can go to the GitHub repository, and we'll show that a little bit later, and there's some manual instructions about how to go install the plugin. And so that's available now, and you can do all the things that I'm about to do, and you'll be able to see that just like anything else. So what does it mean? Well, really what it means is the stuff that you already do today, you can keep doing. It's just you can also send it to ECS, which I think is really cool. So let me put up let me get a slide. This will make it hopefully easier. So I'm going to web demo CLI. Perfect. I'm going to duplicate this. All right, chat. Let me talk about, while I'm doing this work to get this PowerPoint so you guys can see a picture of what I'm talking about. Let me talk about how many people in chat are familiar with Compose or use Compose. And if you love Compose, by all means, tell me that too. Because today's demo is going to be all about Compose. This is a brand new beta, and so it will be, it's very focused on getting something out to you guys today. So today it's Compose. There's not a Docker run functionality yet, but the Docker run's coming. And I think that will be really slick when it gets here. Lots of people love Compose. Great. So the demo you're going to see today takes a Compose file, deploys it locally, and then redeploys it to ECS. And I hope that it's just that simple, because that's really what we're shooting for. So let me get this PowerPoint. All right. All right. Who doesn't love PowerPoint? All right. But this is what I want to show is a little bit about. So you guys all know Compose, and we won't harp on this too much, other than this is effectively what you'll see today. Two services, a front end, expose a port, depend on a back end, and off we go. It's getting it to AWS that is the trick, right? So I wanted to go to AWS, And when I do that, there's a whole bunch of resources. There's VPCs, there's an ECS cluster that needs to get made, there's task definitions, there's some IAM and roles and policies and all of that. I'm going to need an ALB or an ELB. There's security groups, there's logging, all of that to get managed. And what does that mean? And so this is what we think. We're going to take care of all that part for you. And so what it's going to look like is something like this. And so it's going to be you're going to use Docker on the desktop. You're going to use a context for local. You're going to switch your context to something remote, and we're going to build a cluster for you from scratch. Send your stuff up, and then at the end of it, we'll tear it all back down for you. Underneath it all, it's all CloudFormation. And so we'll be able to see that too. And then really, this is sort of everything that gets taken care of for you, and sort of the picture of the VPC across a couple availability zones, and ECS Fargate clusters built up, and then we load balance it. Today we're going to use ELB, but in the future we'll be able to use ALB. So one of the challenges is that when it comes to services, we don't necessarily know a whole bunch about what's actually inside the services. So for like ALB, we don't know the protocol. So when you do this in this demo, if you launch something that's only on 80 or 443, we're going to use an ALB. If you use any other port, we're going to use an ELB. And we're working on Compose to do some of those pieces. So somebody asked about Kubernetes and Swarm in chat. Swarm's still there. So in a couple months ago, Docker split part of the company off, and that company went off to Mirantis, and they still are doing Swarm. We are focused on the developer side, so we've got mostly the Docker desktop and the hub pieces that we're focused on. So Compose still goes to Swarm, and you can still do that. We are working on and talking with a bunch of Kubernetes folks now. So there are tools that go Compose to Kubernetes. We open sourced and sort of opened up the Compose specification, and we're working with a bunch of people for that. But for this first beta, it was ECS is a much simpler thing, right? Like it maps much cleaner to just containers. A talks to B, B talks to C. So it's 100% something that we're thinking about other backends. So we have a backend for ACI in Azure, and we have a backend for ECS in Amazon. So there will be other backends someday. Let's switch to a CLI, and hopefully y'all can see this. I'm going to go to this is what I want. So this is the Docker Compose file that we're going to use today. I'm going to get rid of this. Hold on. So I made this Compose file work for everybody. Okay, let's go back. And I blew some stuff up when I did that. So we've got two services. We've got the front end here and the back end. The front end is it's a simple Python app. We'll look at it in a minute. Locally, we have a build directory or a build line, which means that when we build it locally, we're going to build it directly out of this app directory. And when we go to ECS, we're going to use a hub repo, so a private hub repo. So ECS can't see your local laptop. It has no way to get images from there, so we have to get them to a place that ECS can see. And one of the extra things we'll talk about a little bit later is this X parameters, which basically helps ECS find that. We're going to expose port 5000, and that's pretty much it for this service. And we depend on the back end. So that means the back end needs to be up before me, the front end is usable. The back end in this case is just Redis. So we're just going to keep it simple. For those of you who have been around Docker for a long time and maybe remember the very beginnings of Compose, this Compose file is almost the exact same thing as one of the original demos for Fig, which was what Compose was first. Then we acquired a company called Orchard, brought the Fig team over. But this demo that we're doing is almost exactly the same as the original Fig demo, which I think is pretty cool because this Compose file minus a handful of minor changes like the version and whatnot is the exact same as it's been for about 6 years. So this pull credential, one of the bits that we had to do is, as we expand the backends, how do you handle getting information to a backend that's not specified in Compose without making Compose really have a million parameters about this little tweak for this orchestrator or this little tweak for this thing. And what we settled on was X parameters. So an X parameter tells Compose, you don't need to know this, but your backend, whatever backend you is using this, just give me to them and they'll know what to do with me. So in this case, this is a pull credential. So in AWS, in Secrets Manager, there is a secret for my hub account. And it's a personal access token that I generated just for this and put into AWS, and we'll show how this works. But Compose doesn't need to know anything about that secret. It doesn't actually need it, but the backend does. So Compose will pass it through without doing anything. And so I think that's pretty cool. Real quick, we'll go look at the app. Let's see. It's just a very small Flask app, so a little bit of Python. The first thing we do is connect to Redis. And this is one of the cool, really powerful pieces of Compose. You don't have to worry about service discovery. We're going to take care of that for you. In this integration, we're actually using Cloud Map to take care of this for you. And Friendly Neighborhood Guide, this is both for local and it will go to ECS, and that's what we're going to show today. We're going to show it both. So this is just containers, and what you care about is just getting your work done. So we're going to have this go to both places. I'm an app. I want to talk to the backend. I want to talk to the backend on 6379, and that's it. And the rest of it you don't have to worry about. We'll take care of the service discovery. We'll take care of the DNS bits for you. In this particular integration, when we go to ECS, we do that through the Cloud Map. When we render the page, we push a timestamp into Redis and then pull all of the timestamps that are in Redis out and just render those timestamps out. So somebody asked why Redis. Redis is a super easy database. Like if you've noticed in the compose file, I just said use Redis. In this thing, I said just connect to Redis and push stuff in. So for the sake of demos, Redis is a great database for demos. Let's get out of here. And let's do this locally. So I've got Docker. I've got nothing running. So we're going to do Docker compose and we're going to build. I've already got, I managed to do a little bit of work before this started. And now we're going to do Docker compose up. So very quickly, we've got two services up and running. We've got a back end and a front end. You'll notice these are the logs, and they're interleaved, so we color code them and tag them with where they're coming from. And this is just compose. We haven't done anything different than what your normal workflow is. And this what's also kind of cool is right now we're tailing the logs. So as logs come in, we'll see them. So let's go grab a I even had it up with a previous data set. So let's go add some timestamps. And so as we click through, we're adding timestamps and clicking through. So this is pretty cool. I have this application. It works. Like it's got some menus. It can click. How exciting! Now I would really like to go back to and deploy it to ECS. And what does that take? And so that's what we're going to show next. I'm going to Docker compose, and I'm going to push this. I'm going to push it to Docker Hub. Again, the demo here are in ECS. ECS can't see your local laptop, so it doesn't know anything about the images that you've already built locally. We have to put those somewhere. So in this demo, we're going to use Hub and private repos on Docker Hub, which is our SaaS offering. If you're an ECR user, you'll be able to use those as well. Somebody said, show your browser. Sure, I'll pop the browser back up. So, 1 second. So here's the browser. Actually, let's just do this again. So we're going to do Docker compose. We'll do it from scratch. So Docker compose, I should spell Docker right. Docker compose RM. Yep, remove everything. Okay, so then Docker compose build and Docker compose up. And let's go here. Let's reload this. So now we have a clean bit. The initial load loaded a timestamp. And now if we go hit some more timestamps, we'll see the logs come in. And so this is all local. So it's localhost 5000. Let's say I'm a developer. Great, this works. I'm happy with this. I want to go now and go back to my terminal, and I wanted to deploy this to ECS. So how would that look like? So real quick, I'm going to switch you to me real quick, just to look at my wonderful face while I re-enter my credentials for AWS. So let me just tell you a little bit about what you're about to see. So you're going to see me launch a ECS cluster, connect to it, and launch that same app in the same with the same tools as what I just did locally. And that's really what this whole integration is about. And I'm just logging into Amazon and getting my credentials all set up. By default, we use the same credentials as any other CLI tool. So if you already have AWS CLI configure run, then you're already good to go. We look for credentials in the same space. We use credentials the same way. I'm going to switch you back now to my demo. So let's go to CLI demo, transition this in. All right, so I'm going to clear this out and let's go to look at the Docker ECS plugin. So this is the plugin that we released in this beta. It's got a couple of things. Right now, we released it as a plugin, and we did that mostly for speed reasons. It's easier for us to get you a plugin and iterate on it than it is to build it into Docker. So Docker itself is 7 years old. Lots of people rely on it for production. It's hard to experiment in something that's used in production. So we want to be able to make fast changes. And so the best way for us to do that is a plugin. So this isn't the experience you'll eventually see. Later this year when this GAs, you're just going to Docker run or you're just going to Docker compose. Today, we're going to use a plugin. So you're going to see a lot of Docker ECS. So the first thing I wanted to show you is just Docker ECS secret. You'll remember that I had that secret in my compose file. You might want to create one of those and have it just make it really easy to do that. You can do that here. I've already created one, so I'm not going to go create another one. You can create your secret, put a description in there. It's Chad's cool secret, your password and username. We recommend using a PAT, so you can go to Docker Hub, generate a personal access token just for this integration, and use that. Especially if you're using 2FA for Docker Hub, you're going to need to do that anyway, because with 2FA you'll need a PAT when you don't have a 2FA token login. And then once you get that, what will happen is you're going to get a list of secrets. Well, that was interesting. So this might be let's see. I'll come back to this. Maybe it'll fix here in a second. So let's do Docker ECS setup, and I'll come back. What it's complaining about here is that the default context, which is if you see the little whale and default in the bottom corner of my, well, you would see it if my face wasn't on it. Let me toggle that off. CLI transition. So in the bottom of my screen, I've got the current context that I'm in, the bottom right. It's the default context. That's going to switch here in a minute when I switch to the AWS context. But what this error is telling me is that like what you're trying to do, you can't do with this context. And the reason is that going forward, not all contexts will be the same. Some of them will be the same, and some of them will be different. So like I can do an ECS thing to an ECS context, but I can't necessarily do an ECS thing to a local context because it can't support ECS. So let's go ahead and just create an ECS context. It asks you for a context name. This can be anything you want. I'm just going to use AWS because it's easy and short to type. It's going to ask you for a profile. So we look into your AWS credentials and see what profiles you have. If you have multiple, I have multiple. It lets you pick one. I'm going to pick the sandbox. And then it asks you for a cluster name. There's a little bit of confusion right now for this. You can't name your cluster anything you want. What this is actually asking is, do you have an existing ECS cluster that you want us to use, and tell us that name, or leave it blank and we'll create one for you. So we're going to fix that in a rev here in the next couple of days where it's more clear. If you want to, you can use an existing ECS cluster. So maybe you've got an operations team that creates ECS clusters for you, and that's the way you get one. You can just use that. If you don't, you can leave this blank and we'll create one for you. And then you can choose how. Yes, I am running Windows. This is actually this is WSL2 in Windows. But if you leave this blank, we'll create a cluster for you. And it's really interesting because ECS has no management costs, right? So the management backfilling of ECS doesn't cost any money to run it. The only thing that spins the meters is the containers you're running. It makes it really easy to do effectively a cluster per application. If you wanted to put applications together in the same cluster for tooling reasons or keeping it all in track, you can. By default, we're going to tag everything with the stack name. And so this just leaves it up to you to decide how you want to set it up. I'm going to leave it blank because I'm going to get a new cluster. And I can choose a region. So I'm in San Francisco, so I'm going to pick something close to me. I don't need to enter my credentials. You could hard code your credentials into the context. I'm not going to do it for right now. So I've got that set up. So now we're going to do Docker context. And let's look at that for a second. So Docker context has been in Docker for, I think, about a year and a half. If I go look at my contexts, I've got a couple. So I've got an ACI context, I've got an AWS context, and I've got a default context. The default context is my local laptop. In this case, it's actually a desktop. And it is running WSL2. So I'm running Windows with Linux and then Docker inside that. And then I have two other contexts. I have an AWS context and an ACI context. And it's really interesting to me, like if you think about this, like my terminal currently is capable of deploying to my local engine or to two different clouds all at the same time, using all the same tools. So that's pretty slick. So I'm going to Docker context use AWS. So now the bottom corner changed. I know that whatever I do now is going to go to AWS. So keep that in mind. AWS costs money. So when you fire things in there, you want to make sure you also delete them or don't launch massive things into it. But I know that I'm going to launch something into AWS. So I'm going to go to Docker ECS compose. So this is the plugin experience. Again, when this GAs, you're just going to type Docker compose. You won't have to type this extra plugin, but for now you will. And it's the same compose or the same experience that you would expect. So there's up and down and PS and logs, and we'll show all of those things. But there's also convert, which I think is really cool. So convert takes this Docker file, this Docker compose file, and converts it into the CloudFormation. So under the covers here of this integration, it's just CloudFormation. And so everything that we're about to create is going to be in a CloudFormation stack, and it's all here in this CloudFormation. So you can see what we're going to do. You can see exactly what policies we create. You see exactly what security groups we create, all of that in advance. And this is sort of like a dry run. Like you can see what we're about to do before we do it. And the other bit is if you're a developer and your operations teams use CloudFormation and that's the way that they deploy to prod, you have a path for that. So you can use Compose for as long as you want, and then you'll have CloudFormation for another team should that be the thing that you need. So let's go ahead and just get this going. So we're going to do Docker Compose up. And off we go. And we're going to fire up this CloudFormation stack. and everything is building up right now. You can sit here and watch it. It takes like 3-4 minutes to get it going. But I think another thing we could do is talk about, what tools should you use? And I think you should use the right tool for the job. And sometimes the CLI is the right tool for the job, and sometimes the console is the right tool for the job. So let's go look at the console. Let's go look at the... yeah, AWS Management Console. So... hopefully, oh, 1 second. For some reason, it decided to lock out my console. So hopefully you can see my console now. And just the regular sort of AWS console. Here is the stack for this Docker Compose. We can go look at the resources that are being created, and it's all just CloudFormation. We can look at the security group, so let's do that. We're creating some inbound rules. You'll remember that this service deploys to port 5000, so by default, we're going to pop that port for you. Let's see. We can go look at let's go look at the cluster. So the ECS cluster that's being composed right now, the backend service is coming up. We can go look at the tasks, and we can go look at the task definition. So one of the things I like a lot about this is that if you think about it, like task definition is super powerful. It's also super complicated. And this is the task definition for this single backend service. We take care of this for you. You don't need to know about all of the different pieces and parts. We'll just get you there using the same tooling that you've already used. And then let's see what else we have in here that's interesting. Oh yeah, so CloudWatch. So we, by default, automatically set up CloudWatch for you out of the box. So you can go look at the logs. So if you'll notice, this is just the Redis service. The backend came up first, right? That's what we've asked for. And this is the logs. And you can filter on events or do whatever you need to do inside CloudWatch. We also do things like plumb through other pieces. So you can get the container insights. Actually, I need to enable container insights. I don't have it turned on for me yet. But we never asked for performance monitoring, but because it's plumbed all the way through AWS, you just get this. So better with Rum. We talked actually, so we worked really closely with the Amazon team, and we talked to the CDK folks. There's a world where we will do some CDK things. I think I can see integrations where we'll have that, but the CDK is really meant for the developer side, and where we wanted to plug in was really at the plumbing side, and CloudFormation really is the plumbing lingua franca of AWS, and so that's where we plugged into. Let's go back to the command line and see what we see. Is it still going? Let's see. Okay, it's still going. So actually, we're going to go back to the web. What else can I show you while we're in here? Let's see. Actually, no, I know I can show you something in the command line. And this will be actually a good piece. I'll just need to get another window. So I'll turn off some of this noise so it doesn't bother y'all. And we're going to go into source, Docker ECS compose. And we're going to do Docker ECS compose PS. So all of the pieces of that we saw in the console, you can see some of that here. So with PS, I can ask what services are up and running and see that locally. So I can go look in the ECS console, or I can come here. Yeah, we'll share the link. So this demo that I'm doing is the example in the ECS plugin. So I can see everything compose, and I can see the logs. So here's an interesting bit, right? So the ports. This is the ELB for this service, and it's up and running. And so I've got two services, a back-end service and a front-end service. This is their names, and one of them is exposing port 5000 at this IP address. So that's pretty cool. Let's do Docker ECS compose logs. And this should look really familiar because this is the exact same thing that we just had just a minute ago. Except this is actually running in ECS, not locally. So let's pop up the web here, and I will show, let's see, web demo with CLI. And we will go to the load balancer. So I'm going to go to the load balancer at port 5000. And it'll take a second. Come on, ECS. There we go. And launch through. And you'll notice that the logs tailed in. So as there's some other people hitting it. I see some people in the audience are joining. That's awesome. Hello, audience. You can also hit this. I'm going to get some timestamps put in. Well, that's really interesting. There's some fun. One of the things about live streams is sometimes your demos can get denied service. Here comes some more requests. But what's going on here is this is the exact same user experience. It's just deployed to ECS. So I think that's pretty cool. Chat, let me know if you've got some questions and some things you want to see. I think that's it for the things I had prepared to talk about. So I'm super interested I haven't been able to focus much on chat because I've been trying to get through this demo. But so Juan, how does scalability work here? So in this first bit, we aren't tackling scaling. The first bit is really around the 80-20 of compose, and it's around compose up. The things that are coming next would be when you make so let's say I have this and I want to make a change to this web piece and do that. Scalability is also coming. You can go see the roadmap and see what things are coming on what timeline. Scalability for compose is typically in the how many instances of this thing do you want? We're going to be working with the Amazon folks to come up with what the right story is. We're also working with the broader community. So the compose specification, which if we actually go look at this, compose spec. So here's the spec. It's compose-spec.io. We will probably be thinking about scalability and how to define application scalability in Compose in here. Right now, Compose is very focused on sort of instance counts. So you type, Docker Compose scale up 5 or Docker Compose scale 4, and that will take it down to 4. Then Docker Compose scale 1 takes it down to 1. It's something that we're thinking about, and what do developers care about that? Because Compose is typically, we look at it as a very developer centric tool, and so what do developers need in sort of scaling? So please hop on the roadmap and let us know what you need from that, and then ASG support. So we are backing into ECS right now with Fargate, so we don't have requirements there yet, but in the future we will be able to back into ECS with EC2, and so you will be able to do some of those things. It's not in there today. Today we picked Fargate to launch because it is so easy to just scale Fargate. Brett's joined. So hey Brett, I told you I'd eventually get on this thing, man. I'd launch this screen. So I'm super excited to be here. So tech eager. I think Peter and I are gonna try to make this a pretty regular thing. I think we're gonna figure out what day and what it'll probably be about the same time. But yeah, we're 100% gonna make this like a weekly thing. So we'll come with some ideas of what to show, and then we'll stick around and chat with folks as they want to talk about whatever. Let's see, there was some other questions. So Better with Rum asked a question about ECR. Better with Rum, I am not doing ECR for this particular demo, but I do have a makefile that sort of just shows how you would do this. You could send this to ECR. You could integrate this into your pipeline. You could do all of these pieces. So yeah, 100%, you can make this happen. Like I said, this is the very, very beginning of this. Yeah, I'm super excited. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, but with these sort of big announcements, you got to get there, and so we got there, and now we can talk about it a lot. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about this a lot. This first bit is just the initial launch. So go to Docker, go to GitHub, go to the Docker roadmap. Tell us what you're hoping to see, what you want to see. Go to get Docker Desktop Edge and try the plugin and let us know how it works for you. And we're really interested right now in understanding the UX. And I think yeah, please just talk to us more. And so you can find me at Twitter at MetcalfC. Ping me there, or ping me on GitHub. That's another option. So again, I'm basically MetcalfC everywhere on Twitter and everywhere else. So let me get this. Let's see. Can you use this on prod? It is a beta, and right now it doesn't have updates. It's like a one-shot thing, so it can stand up what you've got. But if you wanted to do, say, like if I was trying to do an inner loop here and work on this Hello Docker application and tweak it, I would tear everything back down and set it back up again, and that'd be a real pain. So we're going to iterate really quickly and get a bunch more versions out. The GA is slated for a little bit later this year. So everybody's prod tolerance is different. I remember first being at Docker like 6 years ago, and people are like, "I'm in prod," and like, "Wow, I wouldn't be, but that's good for you." So, this is a brand new spanking GA. Your risk tolerances are your own, but I would wait until at least we have updates before you before you throw it in GA. Hey, Tech Eager, no problem, man. We'll do this a bunch. I'm really excited about it. Any other questions? All right. Well, I really appreciate y'all sticking around for the initial technical difficulties. As we practice this more, I promise we will get better at it. But we will make it happen. So thank you very much for joining. I think I'm just take us offline. Subscribe to the Docker channel here. Find me on Twitter. We will do this at least weekly. We'll have a good time. If there are things you want to hear about or you want me to talk about, find me on Twitter and ask. And I'm happy, or in chat on the next session, things that you would love to hear more about. We're happy to make that happen. Dave Henderson, it is open source. We open sourced it yesterday. So let me go. That's a good, where can you go? So go to docker.com and get the beta. So download Docker Desktop, the Edge version, not the stable version. This is going to be in the Edge. This is where the plugin is. The example is in here as well, right? So this is the example that I ran through today. The Python Flask app and the Redis app. You'll need to make some changes, but we've got some walkthrough here that'll help you get through the exact same thing that I went through. If you are a Linux user, not a WSL2 user, but a straight Linux user, you can also get started. There are Linux install instructions, or I don't like to do anything twice, so I went ahead and wrote an install script on the Linux side. So if y'all want to just take my install script, it'll make it happen for Linux. It's super easy. The one thing to remember about the Linux side is that when we bundle this in, you'll want to delete this plugin eventually because you'll shadow. But for now, it'll get you started. So, but yeah, this is open source. The Compose spec went open source. So I encourage you, if you build these sorts of tools and you want to come talk to us about what you'd like to see in Compose, lots of folks have things that they want in Compose that haven't been in Compose for the last couple of years. Let's go there and chat with us there. Go to the roadmap, which is, I keep talking about it, but let's just go drop a link in chat for it. This is sort of where you can find Docker folks, including all of the Docker PMs, and come chat with us and the issues about things that you want to see on our roadmap. So Tech Eager, what's the best Linux distro for Docker? I suppose that I'd ask you a question is, where are you? Are you on a desktop? Are you in a cloud? If you're in a cloud, which cloud? The answer is which Linux distros have you used in the past? Are you more comfortable with the Debian distros? Are you more comfortable with the EL distros? The great thing about Docker is it really doesn't matter. Like once you have Linux, we will take care of the rest. I'm actually running, this demo is all happening on a Windows machine, and this is WSL2. We will 100% do a live stream soonish about my WSL2 setup because I think it's pretty awesome. Desktop. So are you interested in like actually running like Linux on the desktop, or do you want something easy like if you already have Windows? If you have Windows already, I'd say just go get WSL2. It's available in Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Pro. It's what I'm using right here in the background. And it's like the best of both worlds. It's Windows and Linux together, and it just works, and it's pretty slick. And Docker Desktop works for that. So everything you've seen today is actually being run on a Windows desktop. Everything that I've done. So it's a pretty good way to start. If you're like you just really want to run like Linux on a laptop or on a maybe a desktop class machine, I mean, I would probably tell you just to do Ubuntu because it's easy. But lots of folks are going to jump in with some of the newer distros, Arch and Mint and all these other ones. I think it's whatever you care about. I think that's the best. But I think in terms of ease of use, Mac with Docker Desktop or Windows with WSL2 and Docker Desktop is really like hands down the easiest way to use Docker, like for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. Yeah, yeah. So Tech Eager, WSL2 is what you're going to want to look at. Oh my Lord. Like, do I need to do this now, Microsoft? Go away. So go look at WSL2. I am you. It's pretty easy to install. Once you have it, you can set up you set up your terminal just to use it. So I don't use Command exe or PowerShell. I just use WSL, and it gives me a full command line experience. And the kind of crazy part is you can do things like I mean, you can run Windows commands in your Linux terminal. So this is NetSH, right? So I can go look at I can go look at my interfaces and my port proxies. Oh, interface. Right. This is very much a Windows thing. And I'm in my Linux terminal, but doing Windows things. So that's pretty cool. And the reverse is true. So in command, you can actually call bash pieces, which is really pretty neat. So it did land on Windows Pro, but they just shipped it as well in the latest version of Windows Home. So it's also built into Home. So if you have either Windows 10 Home or Windows 10 Pro, you can get WSL2. And yeah, John Mont, the VS Code, we actually, as part of our Windows, our partnership with Windows, we work really closely with the VS Code teams to do work on the Docker extension and to work with other pieces of VS Code, and we work really closely with the WSL2 folks as well. And I'm going to 100% talk about the Windows stuff more. So I'll next week if folks are interested, maybe I'll do the Windows side of this demo. So you saw me today go to Amazon. Next week I'll send it out to Azure. And one of these weeks I do want to show my WSL2 environment. I think it's pretty slick. So all right. Well, Techie Year, thank you very much for coming and sticking around. I'm really excited. Super glad that this got off to a rough start, but got rolling really well once it got going. So, thank you all for joining, and I will see you next week. We will make sure to set the reminder both in YouTube, but also we'll tweet it out. So follow Docker, you'll hear about it. Follow me, you'll hear about it. Follow Coding Adventures, you'll hear about it. And I'll talk to you next week. Cheers. Yeah, next week. We'll do it, Techie Year. We got it. We're on it.